Welcome to the Chronic Health Collective. Your fresh start begins here. We've gathered powerful coaches and experts to help you reclaim your energy, heal from the inside out, and step into a life that feels vibrant, aligned, and deeply fulfilling. If you're ready for a better health, stronger relationships, and more purpose, you're in the right place. Hi, my name is Jessica Hammock, and I am the trauma recovery coach. And today I've invited a special guest to join me on the show. Her name is Eileen McDonald, and I'm so excited to have her here today. Welcome, Eileen.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Jessica. I'm so excited to be with you today.
Yes. Eileen and I intersect in an organization, and I have loved connecting with her, hearing what she's about. And you notice that she's posted their holistic coach, which doesn't even begin to encompass what she truly does. And she's such a powerful woman when it comes to talking specifically about something called breath. That thing that we like have to do to live kind of thing. But when I first heard Eileen talk and the expertise that she has in this area, it was just so empowering. And I just think it was when I thought about today's episode and this idea of where we're in, of growth, rebirth, kind of living this new space in life and this season of the year, it's really an important topic to think about how we're breathing, because we are in this spring stage. We're entering it, in transition between spring and summer. We're going to be having a lot of fun and activity, enjoyment, sometimes more stress, and our breath is such a powerful thing. So when most people think about breath work, which is, I feel like, a buzzword in today's society, they think like calm down. And so when you talk about breath work, what do you think the missing link is? Or when we say like just breathe,
Mhm.
just take a breath, like that's a pretty dynamic, explosive sentence, and it has a lot of context. I know people reach out to me and they're like, "Can you do a breath work session?" And I'm like, "Which of the 10 modalities of breath work?" So talk to us a little bit about this idea of breath work in general and from your perspective.
Sure. Yes. Just take a deep breath. Is one of when I hear people say that, I know they have really good intentions. They really do. They want people to be more settled, be more calm because they see people that are agitated or overwhelmed. And I really want people to realize that it is so much more to take the deep breath. The breath is actually, I consider it a biofeedback, a personal
Mm,
biofeedback device. It gives us information. If we're overwhelmed or stressed out and we go to taking a deep breath or one of the breathing techniques that calm us down, we're missing a lot of information that the body is telling us of why we're in that state.
mm.
So I think there's one of the missing pieces is that we go to fix it before we go to be curious about why are we actually over breathing? Why are we breathing fast? Or what is it in that space that we're not able to navigate very well?
I love that so much. And I know that you and I discussed and talked about this, and you have a perspective that has to do with like a chemical reaction or a chemical pattern in our bodies. So, can you talk about like chemically, what does that mean in our bodies about breathing?
Sure. Yeah, I look at breath work. There's mechanics of breath work, which most people are doing, right? You breathe the 4-7-8, you use your diaphragm, you breathe through one nostril, the other nostril, all of those things. And, beneficial for some. But what I like to go deeper, there's breathing and then there's respiratory health, the respiratory fitness. And I'm not talking about respiratory disease. I'm talking about everyday people in the way they breathe. And so, as you know, most people are aware we breathe in oxygen and we let go of carbon dioxide. And most
Mhm.
people look at carbon dioxide as it's the poison or it's the waste product from our
Yeah.
cells. And so we look at it almost in a negative way. It's like, ooh, carbon dioxide. And so how I approach it, I have a biofeedback device that actually measures the carbon dioxide that's left in
Mm.
your airway after your last breath. And that's important is because carbon dioxide is actually the key to healthy breathing. It's not oxygen. And I don't think
Mm.
people realize that because that carbon dioxide level will determine in our body goes to the brainstem to determine when to take that next breath. And so that's the regulation of it. The other important thing about carbon dioxide is that it's actually a calming element when our blood vessels get enough carbon dioxide in our body, it relaxes. So that's why when people do the relaxation breath of inhale for 4, hold for 7, and exhale slowly for 8, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, or that off switch of our body. But what it also does, it helps regulate some of that carbon dioxide. For some people, what's happening now, and you said it, it is a buzzword. I've been in coaching for 20 years using biofeedback devices, and I've been using breathing probably as my key element for, oh my goodness, probably 15 of those years. And when I used to talk about breathing, people go, doesn't everybody breathe? And I'm like, yes, but not everybody breathes well. And now it's all of, which is great. We need an awareness, right? We need an
Yeah,
awakening
yeah.
of people to understand. I think what happens is that when people are not aware of truly what breathing is actually all about, it's not just about techniques, it's about the chemistry in our body. And the
Mhm.
other level is that it's related to behavior. Breath has a lot of behavior embedded in it. So we go a little bit deeper in breath work. I don't do the superficial
Yeah.
techniques. We really go down deep for people to really make those shifts in themselves.
Well, so I want to talk about behavior, but I have like this random squirrel question
Yes.
that goes through my mind. Like when there's every profession and every person that has their expertise, and then I always ask, like physical therapists and people like that, like, can you see somebody walk and tell if their gait is off? So my question for you is like, because you're a breath coach, like, can you watch somebody breathe and be like, oh, they got some breathing issues?
Yes, it's so funny because I'm in different networking groups, and most of them know what I am doing. And sometimes I'll do a little side comment to somebody. I'm like, okay, you're getting a little agitated. Kind of take a breath, because they start holding their breath. You can see the tension in
Oh
their
my
neck.
God.
You can see the tension in their chest. It really does change the body's mechanics of it. So yes, I know people are a little weary. They're like, "Are you watching me breathe? Don't be watching me breathe. I want to be angry right now, so do not tell me that."
I love that. People be like, stop psychoanalyzing me right now. I'm like, actually wasn't, but now that you said
I
something.
know. Oh.
But I do have to coach my own self. Just breathe. Just remember, because you are right. Like we have lost, we are focusing our awareness, I think, sometimes on the wrong piece of things. And we forget and I forget, I have had several types of body work done, massages and stuff like that. And sometimes the practitioner will be like, just breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Release your breath. I was like, I didn't know I was even holding my breath.
Yes. Yes.
So, talk to me about the behaviors. Maybe what are some of those behaviors that you find are commonalities, or the behavior that we should be paying attention to?
So, just like other habits that we've learned unconsciously, our breathing habit and our breathing patterns are learned unconsciously.
Okay.
So, around behavior, if someone is in a situation where they don't feel that they're in control of a situation, they alter their breathing. And it depends, and it's very individualized, but they might hold their breath in order to feel that they're in control, or they might not allow the exhale to be all the way because they want control. And so the behavior is embedded in the breath depending on the person and what their emotional landscape is like. But behavior in and of itself, it's just if life is chaotic outside, why would you want to take a full breath in? Our body protects itself by doing those short, shallow breaths.
Yeah.
And why would you, if you feel like you don't have control over anything, a lot of times we don't exhale because we need to feel like we're in control. So there's behavior embedded in that, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, so fascinating. Yeah.
So there's,
So,
okay.
I was going to ask, as an extension of that, because you said you have this machine that measures it. Is there like a zone that is like when you
Yes.
see somebody on the machine and you're like, this is the CO2 level? Like, what is the zone of like optimal release, I guess you could say, or optimal breath out?
Sure. So, believe it or not, the carbon dioxide level that's left in our airway is the same measurement that we want in our blood. For people who don't know, my background is in nursing, so sometimes I get a little technical. Jessica can wheel me
I
in.
love it.
Um, so we measure, it's between 35 and 45 millimeters of mercury. And
Okay.
so it shows that on the graph, and also shows in real time how you're inhaling and exhaling, if you're holding, if you're sighing. So I don't know if there's any sighs in the audience, but a lot
Mhm.
of times we sigh as a natural response for our body to regulate the chemistry in our body.
Okay.
So if you, I was talking a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said, "Oh my gosh, this might have just saved my marriage. My husband sighs all the time, and I get really agitated, and I think he's not interested, or you know." And so she said that's gotten so many arguments in our house
Yes,
because he sighs.
I've had people around me, I will sigh and they're like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing's wrong." And they're like, "But you just," I'm like, "Literally nothing is wrong." Well, my body is like, that recalibration almost.
Yes, and it's a beautiful thing. I think we forget how amazing our body is, that it does,
Yeah.
and it protects us in so many ways. I had a client several years back, and she learned that she kept her breathing small because all her life she was told she was too loud, too big, too noisy, too much. And
Mhm.
so unconsciously, she decided, body did short, shallow breaths to keep
Yeah.
herself small. And it wasn't until she went through some, the training and stuff, she's like, oh my gosh, I never, would have realized that before. But that's some of the behavior that we've learned to navigate life stresses or in our environment.
So when I'm assuming you take this information then and connect it to them doing the work to relearn patterns.
Yes.
What is the like time frame if somebody is working with you and they have been stuck in bad habits, maybe not from a trauma perspective, they've just learned, the subconscious
Yeah.
messages that have built these patterns. What is the average time somebody has to actually be intentional or work through this to see the difference?
Right. So it's really interesting because it's just like a spectrum. But if they didn't have any previous trauma or long-term stressors, I'll use an example. Somebody who does public speaking is a good one. When they get up and do public speaking, many times they start to shift their breathing, and then that changes their brain, and so they go into that stress mode. So somebody in that way that wants to work on presentations or some type of performance, it's usually about 7 or 8 weeks, but the work is done in between sessions, right? Because they're the ones that have to practice and have that awareness of when their breathing starts to shift. When it's a little bit more detailed, people are more overwhelmed and stressed out, then that can take longer. It depends on, you know, how they're progressing, just
Yeah.
for the most part. But usually, most times we can get people to a place about 12 weeks where they really understand and start picking up their patterns
Okay.
and catch it before
Yeah.
it starts to derail them.
Yeah, so adding breath coach now to I don't need just a speaker coach, I need a breath coach. Make sure I'll add that to my list here. Breathe. It's not that simple. So, if you think about that, like what is a simple way? I want to get into your framework a little bit later in the
Yeah.
show because I know that's such a powerful thing that you've developed in relation to this. But for somebody who has never heard this concept before, what would be some ways you instruct them to begin to recognize their own breath patterns throughout the day? Is there ways they can pay attention differently for that?
Yes, so I want to remind people that we breathe 900 times an hour, give or take. Some people more, some people less. That's so close to 22,000 times in 24 hours. So I want that to land because I think what people don't realize is how often they breathe and how easy it is to develop an unhealthy habit if they're
Mhm.
in stressful situations at work or at home or whatever that is. And so what I would have them do all the time is observing, which is really painful for people because they want to do something. They just they want it to shift, but the all of this wonderful information is in the observation. So then I have them choose. I give them a list of times of the day. I usually like them to do it with another habit so it's easy for them. They don't have to do it. So if
Mhm.
they're, when they're in the morning and if they do their emails in the morning, check your breath before your emails and then when you're finished doing your emails, like what does that look like?
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
before you get bed in the morning and when you go to bed at night. You know, pick 2 or 3 times. If you know that you have stressful conversations every day with people, then what is your breath around that time, both the before and after? Because that's the awareness I want them to build, is to notice. I want the other thing too, which I think everybody can do, and people don't realize, it's our posture. If we can just put our shoulders back and really be able to have our posture when we're curled over like this in front of the computer, or with closed arms because we're shutting people out, we're protecting. You know, once we open up, that breath that we take in, it allows the lungs to really get that oxygen down to the lower areas of the lung where we really need it. If we're hovered over, it's going to stay in the chest area. So even now, hover your shoulders over and take 4 breaths. And then open up, and now take 4 breaths. Have your hands.
Yeah.
What do you notice?
It feels like I have more permission to do it in my body, like a safer mechanism
Yes.
of breathing, you know. It's not as difficult for the organs to do their job and stuff. So
Yes. It's that posture is really very important with that.
I love that. Well, I am so excited to hear what's next. Stay tuned. We are going to go to a small commercial break for a word from our sponsors. Have you encountered a situation or an event in your life that's caused you to feel stuck? You were on a journey to live your best life, but thoughts and feelings from the past keep showing up and has caused you to feel like you're not headed in the right direction or being the best version of you. Meet Jessica Hammock, trauma recovery and transformation coach. Not only will she teach you about emotional and mental health, she's here to help you unwind the treasure of who you are from the trauma of your past so that you can walk in the truth of your identity and break free from what is holding you back so you're able to nurture the best version of who you're meant to be. The time is now. Let's get started.
Everything we're made of contains light. From the sun that feeds our world to the energy that flows within us. With LifeWave X39, we've found a way to put that light to work. With X39, we achieved something remarkable in the field of wellness and science that others could not. By utilizing LifeWave's unique patented technology, X39 uses light to elevate GHK-Cu, a copper peptide known to support overall health and wellness. Unlike traditional light therapy, X39 uses the body's own infrared light to naturally increase vitality. By gently stimulating the skin with light, our non-invasive, non-transdermal X39 patches help you conquer your active lifestyle and pave a new way to vibrant health. Becoming a powerhouse is easier than you think. It all starts with your body and a little help from light. Place one LifeWave X39 patch on the body. Apply the patch to clean, dry skin in the morning. Patches may be worn for up to 12 hours before discarding. Keep well hydrated while using this product. Harness your natural potential. Reclaim youthful energy. Live long, live well, live young with LifeWave X39. Be the light. LifeWave.
Why do 98% of beauty enthusiasts rave about coolness? It's all in the blend of ancient wisdom and modern science. Introducing Coolness, Pearlescent Face and Eye Serum Cream. This powerhouse combines the antioxidative power of schisandra berries, the glow of pearl powder, and the hydrating wonders of dragon's blood extract. It's like a time machine for your skin, making it radiant, firm, and oh so smooth. Inspired by ancient Chinese traditions and backed by modern nutritional science, this serum cream is perfect for dry, mature, and aging skin. It's time to unlock your inner glow with Coolness. Treat your skin to the best of both worlds today.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to continue this conversation, and I want to kind of set the stage to really talk a little bit more, a kind of a bridge, I guess, between your work and my work. And I would love to connect that for the audience. But before we get into sort of the breakdown of stress and trauma, when you think about, when you hear people use this concept of healthy breathing, what do you think is maybe some misconceptions they have around that, or you wish that they would understand about healthy breathing versus the direction we're going to go?
Right. So, healthy breathing, what I want people to truly understand, it's more than mechanics. I think I said that a little bit earlier. I think we focus on the mechanics of it, that healthy breathing not only is about utilizing the right mechanics and the right chemistry, but we have to realize that every breath we take nourishes our entire body, every single cell. And I think we know that, but we don't remember it. I think that people just take for granted that we think the breath is automatic. It's doing what it's supposed to do. And why do I have to worry about it? Why do I need to focus on it? So really, when we think about healthy breathing, mechanics are important, but it's really the respiration. It's the breathing chemistry. It's the behavior behind it. And when we look at it as a whole, that it's really nurturing every cell and how we think, feel, and act in every aspect of life.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing you said is like, when you ask people, how well do you nourish yourself? I don't recall anybody actually saying by breathing appropriately or in a way that is nourishing for myself. So that concept alone, it's not just like eat right or sleep well or like get more sleep or drink all your water. It's like, are you breathing to nourish yourself,
Yes.
and that's definitely powerful. So I know the audience and listeners probably from my end know that I do a lot of trauma work and stress work with individuals in stress and those kind of things. So what does a pattern look like for somebody who's like chronically dysregulated or has experienced more of a chronic PTSD kind of environment or situation versus somebody who would have that regulation or has learned the regulation for breathing well? What can you kind of give us the spectrum of difference, I guess you could say?
Sure. So, for somebody who can self-regulate, I'll just let me say it this way: healthy breathing, also, because this is going to come into this,
Sure.
is our breathing chemistry is maintained in a healthy way while we're eating, while we're singing, while we're chewing, all of those activities, the aerobic type of things that we do with our mouth and no matter what we're doing, our breathing chemistry needs to be maintained in a healthy level. What happens with stress and trauma is that, just like other things in the body with trauma, how it's held, the breath actually shifts and it remembers, right, of what, or the brain remembers and the body responds with that too. But the breath remembers how I should respond when I'm in danger, and so it holds itself back. or,
Okay.
or so many times we go into our chest breathing and we stay in our chest. And we think, many people say, well, I hold my breath a lot. And I said, yes, but holding your breath sometimes is the regulation of of that fast breathing pattern. Sometimes it's a fast breathing pattern. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's a slower chest breathing pattern, but many times it's around the chest that we stay in and we don't allow the diaphragm to expand. When we have trauma, our diaphragm's a muscle and our muscles hold information and
Yeah.
memories. And so if we're in a traumatic situation, a lot of times the body is resisting that diaphragm to expand because it thinks it's helping and nurturing, so it's keeping it tight.
And how long is there when somebody begins this work, sort of like of connecting back to regulation? I've heard this quote that, or this, I guess, fact that they were saying, like, if you don't express an emotion, for an example, and you don't really like allow yourself to feel it and move through it, it can stay in the body up to 7 years. So from a breath standpoint, what does that look like? Like, how long does our muscle hold the memory, or how forever until the pattern changes, or what does that look like?
So yeah, it does. What happens is the body's response. So what happens with the breath is that if there's a similar situation that is occurring, because because our brain tries to protect us. We perceive different, and where or if we detect something in the environment or with other people, our breath is going to go that tightness because it remembers that feeling, that situation, right? And so it might not even just be that it's settled there, but the memory is there, and so that's going to be the initial response, that holding that breath tight. So when we go through the training, it's really about educating the physiology of what's going on. But I also tell people that I think is so important, and I think you can relate to this, is that our body is doing this to protect you. It's physiologic. It's not a personality flaw. It's not something that you've done wrong. It's that the body was trying to protect you from situations that were perceived dangerous, and it's taking control. So let's look at it that way first to relieve some of the pressure on someone. And then we can then put the detective hat on and say, okay, you know what? First thing is awareness, but second thing is observation. We need to observe what's going on so we can be aware. Was the first thing. And second is exploring. So I help them explore through the different stages of the breath. So we work a lot with the inhale and figuring out. We have speed up the inhale, we slow down the inhale, we pause the inhale, and we get to see what emotions and triggers come to life.
Okay.
And what's embedded in that. And then we do that with the exhale. And many people don't realize there's a pause in between the inhale and exhale, very small in our natural breath. And in that pause is a space almost just to be. And a lot of people go from inhale to exhale to inhale to exhale without that pause of being. So once we start to explore that with some curiosity and people not of being afraid of the breath, of thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to trigger something in me, because it can. We do that with just a little more ease and meet people where they are. But emotions come up, situations come up, memories come up. I was working with somebody last week, and she said, okay, I think I really remember holding my breath at a funeral. It was somebody very important to me. And I said, okay. And then I got a text about 2 days later, and she goes, no, my goodness, no. It was when I was 4 years old and this situation happened. And she said, I never even thought of it. And she said, it was such a relief to realize that I can let it go.
Oh, wow. That's so powerful.
And so, and you do all the trauma work. I don't necessarily do trauma work per se, but there's with the emotions embedded in the breath, once we start to unfold that, then there's the body allows the opening for it to then start to regulate a little bit better, and people feel more comfortable. I will say that when the carbon dioxide level is constantly low, I've had people at 24, 25 that live there. They're overwhelmed, they're stressed out. When we start to raise it, it's uncomfortable, just like any change in because our body's been sustained in that level for so hard. So the extreme is, you can do it in several sessions, and then some people it takes a little bit longer, because I truly believe that I allow the body to give the cues when they're ready to move on to the next level.
So let me ask you this question, and in relation to, I guess, symptoms is for lack of a better term, but you can correct. What would be the symptoms of somebody if they weren't on your machine, and common symptoms, I guess, for somebody who has low carbon dioxide levels versus high? Like, is there a set of symptoms you see on both ends of the spectrum, and what typically do those look like?
Yeah, mostly low when it's low. When it's high, we don't usually have high. That's usually breathing behavior. It's usually something metabolic, like a diabetes or something along those lines. Okay, so it's usually a metabolic thing that causes that. So it can range from. I mean, I have a screenshot of something, and people go, "Oh my goodness!" It can range from anything, from any stress related, where it's anxiety, overwhelm. It can go into every different area of cardiac system. With cardiac, it could be cardiac arrhythmias. I've worked with people that have cardiac arrhythmias where we're healthy. There was nothing on their EKG, but it was breathing related. I've worked with people, some people have seizures. I mean, and it's carbon dioxide related. Some people have tremors. Some people have, so I mean, it ranges. And a lot of times people will say, everything looks fine on my blood work, but I still am experiencing these symptoms, and I just don't
Okay.
know what to do with that, because everybody's telling me, and it's because they're not aware that their breathing chemistry is off. And we have to think about that. When the breathing chemistry is off, the pH is off in our body. It really goes to every
Yeah.
cellular
Yeah.
part. So if you think of anything that under a diagnosis, pretty much it could be related to poor breathing habits.
It's like, let me check your breath.
Yes.
We're
I
gonna do
think
it.
I do think that. I just wonder at this time and stage in the game why that isn't part of our health
Yeah.
assessment, or our physical when we go.
I probably have never, I mean, until I met you, have heard it explained this way. And I'm curious, and I want to talk about your framework toward a little later, but can you tell me like how you got to actually this being like nobody's talking about this, or like they don't check it? Like, I'm sure that there are going to be listeners on this show that'll be like, I got to go ask my doctor about checking my CO2 levels, and they'll be like, what are you talking about?
They will.
So how did you like land in this like, ah,
So, so I started my own health journey years ago, and so from that, I learned a lot about biofeedback. So I was
okay,
trained in a lot of biofeedback techniques. I was trained in brain mapping, neurofeedback, if people understand that, retraining the brain. We were doing it for peak performance. So I did stress management for executives for many years, and then I did other biofeedback called heart rate variability, which you're familiar with. A lot of people, if they're not, you can check out HeartMath. I have no affiliation with them, but it's a
yeah,
great company if people are curious to really understand about regulation a little bit, if they want to start investigating. And so it was funny. I was at this conference, and one of the women that was sitting had this device. I'm like, "What is that?" She says, "Oh, it's the best biofeedback device you get." I'm like, okay. So we did, and it's funny because I used to have I used to we did heart rate variability, and people sometimes really struggled with that. They never were able to get into what they called a coherent state, their body to be in that calmer state. And I never understood what that was. And then we started using the capnometer, and then measuring the end-tidal CO2, carbon dioxide level. And it was so interesting. It's like, okay, now I get it. Now I know why people aren't shifting. It's that they really need to change the chemistry, and then you can change, go into the nervous system regulation for some people. And so, yeah, that's how I got into it. I said I had $20,000 devices in my office, and I had $500 devices in my office. And this one at that point, I think it was, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000. I'm like, if there was a fire, I would take all six of my machines and run, because all the other ones could be, I could, but yeah, those are the most important ones. Because for me, I want people to see in real time, or experience it. It's a lot of time I don't do it with the machines. I can do it without the machines now, with depending with people if they want it or not. But I like to see that they can see in real time. It makes the invisible visible for them, and
yeah,
then they can catch on and say, okay, now I get it. I didn't realize I did this little sighing thing. Now I know I do,
yeah,
and now I can
yeah.
see it. So that's how I got. Yes, I still believe it's one of the. They just came out with a portable one, which I haven't
Mm,
invested in yet, but I'm very curious about. I want to see what the feedback is on that, because before it was, of course, a device, and you'd have,
yeah.
all the tubes and all the, But yeah, so I'm really curious about the portable one.
And so when you use this in a session with somebody, I mean, you say you got to the place where you can kind of do it without, but if you were using it, how long does it take to show the pattern? Like how much of a time to on the machine to give you that feedback?
So what I usually do for my assessment is I usually do what they call just little stressor, give them some stress. So I have them do. Now everybody's going to stress out if I hear this. I have them start with 1,081, get that, subtract by 7, get to 3 in 2 minutes, and go.
Oh, wow.
And then correct them as they go along, right? So, I mean, that's one of them, right? But because I want to
Yes.
see the activation in their body. I want to see
Okay.
if their
Yeah.
breathing shifts or their shifts. And so they can see pretty much. And then we'll talk about some stressors that are in their lives. And then that will show up in that. And they're really surprised that that happens. That actually a body's actually showing that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's So when somebody has this dysregulation or long-term, chronic stress, or they're in this state, what how does that impact other things? Like we've talked about the nourishment in the cells, the nourishment in all the systems. Like, how does that show up sort of in relationship decision making? Like, do you see that impact that piece of things?
Yes. Yes, because I'm going to have you a visual. When your carbon dioxide level and your chemistry is in a healthy state, I want you to envision a beautiful brain, and it's colorful. It's got yellow and pink and blue and red, and it's got oxygen, glucose, everything that it's supposed to have, and we're functioning at our best. We can be calm, cool, and collective. We're not overreactive. We can handle stressful situations. When people have that chronic dysfunction in their breath, that overbreathing, that brain is blue. What it does, the body goes into a stress response, so it reserves the oxygen, it reserves the sugar. And therefore, what the body does then is says, I don't really need to think through a problem right now. I just need to put that energy and that blood flow into my muscles, so to either flee, fight, right? Or
Yeah.
so it does that. It's really interesting. When I was doing training years ago, I had a couple that I knew that were having some heated discussions in their house, and I hooked them both up. And I told them they weren't allowed to answer each other until we're above the line.
Oh, wow.
And and that's they still late 15 years later they're like, yeah, we always say you must be below the line, because meaning your carbon dioxide level is too low, because you're acting up because you're reactive, right? You can
Yeah.
feel it in your body. So relationships suffer because we're not able to listen and hear what other people are saying when our brain is not at its, and I mean, there's nothing you don't
Yes.
know, but the physiology of it stems from the breath many times.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to hear more about your specific framework and working with clients. We'll be right back after these messages. Have you encountered a situation or an event in your life that's caused you to feel stuck? You were on a journey to live your best life, but thoughts and feelings from the past keep showing up, and has caused you to feel like you're not headed in the right direction or being the best version of you. Meet Jessica Hammock, trauma recovery and transformation coach. Not only will she teach you about emotional and mental health, she's here to help you unwind the treasure of who you are from the trauma of your past, so that you can walk in the truth of your identity and break free from what is holding you back, so you're able to nurture the best version of who you're meant to be. The time is now. Let's get started.
Is your skin aging, dry, tired, and dull? Are you putting on more and more makeup to cover the fine lines and flaws? Now you don't have to. Coolness Skincare, developed by a middle-aged woman just like you. 2 years in formulating. Pearlescent face and eye serum cream with Schisandra berries and dragon's blood extract for your face, eye, and neck. And the vegan version, Deep Love Face Cream, featuring powerful blue tansy. This face cream is everything you are looking for. Feel your beauty. Visit coolness.com or scan the QR code for more information.
So clearly, you can see that Eileen is amazing at what she does. She has a lot of expertise, going from these 900 breaths in an hour and really thinking about what color you're lighting up or not lighting up, and, paying attention. Like, now I'm going to always wonder, what are my CO2 levels at? New thing, right? I got to harness myself to not run out and buy machines I'm not trained in, because that's my addiction, is buying books and machines, because it's my latest fascination. But that being said, I know you have this framework that you've developed, Body QIQ. So what does that mean, and how is that different from other like breath work type approaches?
Sure. So, yes, I've been doing this for over 2 decades, and like you, I love to learn new things. So I'm always over 20 years accumulating everything.
I
And
know.
finally, a couple of years ago, I said, I think I know. I have a lot of information. And so, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I decided that, I use a lot of breath work with people, not traditional, like I said, and we do some traditional breath work, but really understanding the whole physiology of breath work. And then I do nervous system regulation, and then I do work with people with, their who they are, right? What their mission is in life, what they really want to do, and what their passions are. And so how can I incorporate this? So that's what I did. And I did the sequence. I always like to, I'm a scientist, I think, at heart, because I tried it in different ways, because I do think that setting a stage and making sure that it's in the right sequence really shifts people. And so for me, that's one of the areas, is that the breathing is the first thing I do with everybody. Even if somebody comes to me for coaching for different other, stress related or non-stress related, we always look at the breath, because it's there. We're using it as a coping tool, and I want people to understand more about that, of how they operate, because I truly believe that the breath connects the mind and the body,
Hmm.
at even, so we're not even talking physiological, but the spiritual aspect of it, right? It's biological, it's all of it. And that is our first line of defense for everything. Like I said earlier, are you going to breathe in the chaos? The body's not going to, it's going to protect you. It's not
Yeah.
going to let you release something that you're not, And so the breath to me is the foundation, is the key to
Hmm.
everything else that that we do to make shifts in our lives, to live with more ease and flow. And I think that's the goal for me, for people, is to be able to take control. First, they have to want to do it, right? We know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have to realize that it's a journey,
Hmm.
but what get to the other side of that bridge is so worth it, because their life is more pleasurable, it's more enjoyable, they're handling life stresses with more ease and flow, and for me, that's important.
Yeah. So you've mentioned some of your clients, like, and some of the things you've done from this idea of like being above and below the line, and that framework, what does it look like from somebody just having that awareness, or actually hearing this broadcast and being like, I got to get more awareness, like real awareness of what I'm doing, to actual transformation? Like, what does that look like for them to move like in that direction? And how do you, using your method specifically?
Sure. So we do the observation first, right? It's all self-observation, like I said before, and then the self-exploration. I think that's where the fun part comes in, and they do a lot of this work on their own. I mean, we have a session. A lot of times they rent the device out so they can play with it with themselves at home, and that's always really cool. And then so for me, during the journey that they're on, is for them to develop confidence in themselves, in the sense that they're able to take control of the situation, that when
Mhm.
life is going to hit them with the ups and downs, that they can regulate. So it's the observation, it's the exploration, but it's the confidence that they can self-regulate in a challenging situation, that they can navigate those rough waters and not get taken out. Somebody years ago said to me, it's about being able to dress for the weather. Like, the weather's not going to
Mm,
change,
yeah. Mhm.
but you know how to dress for the weather. You
Yeah,
know you're
exactly.
prepared, and so you have the tools. And understanding that moves people through. So
Yeah.
go through the training for the breath work, and that breathing, is that becomes very apparent for them. What their emotion is in situations. I always say, sometimes I use the analogy, if I can remember it, peeps. It's Easter time, which is peeps. But it's people. Emotions, environment, pain, situations. Like those are the areas that shift our breathing in moments that we're not recognizing.
I love that. So you have that little check your peeps,
Check your
like,
peeps, like, and and people go. The thing is, we're responsible for that, right?
yeah,
People are going to trigger us. That's just
yeah,
life. We're going to have a bad day, and somebody's going to. But how quickly can you recover from it? And that's my big thing: is how quickly can you recover? And what I found over and over with clients is that the recovery is quicker, and the incidents are less.
okay. So when you talk about this idea of recovery and even the whole patterns, the dysregulation and moving them through this framework, do you notice a difference in breathing, like the dysregulated patterns, a difference between men and women in their patterns, or is it not, significant, or is it pretty much depending more like situationally, or does the hormone factor of like women having this different hormone cycle than men, does that um, like show up differently? Does their breathing pattern show up more distinctly differently in male or female?
Right. Not so much. It really depends on the emotional landscape and the situation.
Okay.
But what I will tell you is that in my experience of working with both sexes, now I work mostly with women, but with both sexes in the past, many times the men didn't take it personal.
Okay.
They would say, "This is fact, this is data, and now I need to change the data." Right? It's information. It's that biofeedback. It's
Yeah.
showing me something, and I need to change. In many cases, women would say, "Oh, my goodness, I can't believe that my body responds like that. I thought I was really handling stress really well, or I was trying to manage
Mhm.
everything." So their interpretation of how they manage it is different, and how they interpret it is different.
Okay. Yeah.
Not all, but for the most part. And when we are depleted, when our energy is depleted, and our hormones are depleted, because there is definitely a relationship with cortisol and women's hormones and things like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, it depends on that. But really, it's a lot of times it's the interpretation of it. They don't look at it as data; they look at it like it's them. Whereas a
Yeah.
lot of times men look at it, it's just data points.
Okay. That I can see that definitely being, a difference. Is there Do you see a pattern in terms of like when people have these dysregulated breathing habits that they've learned because their stresses or the emotional landscape that they are, a pattern of which organs it most significantly impacts first, or anything from the rest of the body standpoint, like they might end up experiencing more of this type of disease or syndrome or outcome in their body? Like, do you have that kind of show up a certain way? Like,
I don't think I have it show up that way as much as it's individualized with the symptoms.
okay.
It's very individualized. Some people will get migraines, and somebody else might have the same breathing chemistry and not have migraines, but what they have is they'll have something like a tremor, or they'll have, they won't be able to sleep at night. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
I don't think I said this earlier, but there is some research going on, and of course it's a theory, so research is research. But what they have been looking at is that if you have low carbon dioxide level during the day, that could be a cause for apnea at night, because the body's trying to regulate itself.
Okay.
So there's some correlation that's news, with that. That would be, but that
Yeah.
was interesting. But yeah, it really is individualized, because we learn individual patterns, um, depending on coping skills. I have a lot of people that have learned coping skills when they were younger.
Yeah.
It's, in the sense of they're sitting there doing a test, and the teacher goes up and they start holding their breath, thinking, "Oh my gosh, is she looking at me? Is she thinking I'm cheating?" All of those thoughts.
Yeah.
And that gets actually then turned into authority. So when we're dealing with people as we get older, we've learned to hold our breath. So we either keep ourselves small or not being noticed. And then we're
Yeah.
sitting in a boardroom and we can't talk up, whether we're male or female. That's both. So that's those. So it's different symptoms for different,
Yeah.
and that's symptoms. So say this, but the reasoning is a little bit different for people. Yeah.
Yeah. Is in your work, is there a pathway to sort of take people on to help them move from like relying on just doing a technique to actually becoming more in tune with their body cues? Like, what is that? Do you see that?
Yes,
And how
that's the
does that
goal.
come?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
goal. The goal, and that's where I labeled it the body cue, because the cues that the body's giving us, right? There's an intelligence in that. And we
Okay.
need to look at that. And that's where the regulation part comes in, because they
Yeah.
pick those things up a lot sooner.
Okay.
They pick that.
Yeah.
I had a teacher I was working with at one point, and she had a lot of anxiety. She was a kindergarten teacher, loved her kids, but didn't really like the parents very much, because the parents got a little were overwhelming for her because she's not used to communicating with them.
Yeah.
And she said, I would actually I would flip my lid, like I had to sit on my hands not to just act out. And so I started laughing. So anyway, we went through, and what she noticed, the very first sign in her body was a flip flop in her stomach. And when she noticed that flip flop, then she was able to breathe, get centered, because she realized that her breathing was shifting and
Yeah.
her muscles were getting tense. She was going to that fight, flight, freeze mode.
Yeah.
And so she was able to stop that. So that's the goal for me, is for people, I always say, to get themselves into a tizzy and out of a tizzy, like get themselves activated, because you want them to know what that feels like, but then how you work your way out so you know when that hits earlier and earlier, and then it's not as fearful, I think,
Yeah.
for people either.
Yeah. There's probably still some people in a tizzy thinking about having to count down backwards from
I
1081.
know, I'm sorry about that.
Some people are still probably stuck on counting backwards. I want to know if they got past first to the first number. But just take a deep breath, right?
just take a deep breath, that's it.
Well, we are almost out of time, and I definitely want the audience to kind of hear from you. Is what would you want them to know as we kind of wrap things up? Like maybe one last statement, and what it is that their contact information for you is on the screen and the show notes, all of those things. But just give us that final piece of like what you want us to know and what's important about contacting you.
Sure. I just think for people just to get curious about their overall health and well-being, and look at other areas, like breathing, if not with me, with somebody that does a deeper breath. And I want people to realize that they're empowered. When you really takes a stand and really support yourself, and you empower yourself to be healthy in all areas of your life. So start with your breath, just monitor it, observe it, and it's look at it with curiosity, not with fear.
Yeah. And so when what did they need to know besides just looking up you on your website or your
Oh,
social media? Is there anything in particular this last way to contact you or ways you work with them?
yeah, so I do one-on-one, I do group, and I have a 8-week coaching class that I do twice a year. And my
Okay.
next one's in June. I think I postponed it a little for reasons, but it's at the beginning of June. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
but call me for, I love to get on the phone, 15, 30 minutes of a free consultation. If somebody's really curious, I'd love to at least give them a tool or two that they can
yeah,
utilize.
listen to you breathe. That's not creepy at all.
Not you.
Eileen, I've learned some things today that myself will be helpful. Even just the sighing thing. The sighing thing for me is like going to be such a powerful takeaway. And I'm so glad you were able to join us today. I think audience, like if you haven't laughed a little bit, hopefully you will be able to take. She's not the creepy breath listener, but she is really understanding and knowing all about who you are and how to help you be most powerful. And you know what? That's what we're all about here at the Chronic Health Collective. If today's episode spoke to you, don't go it alone. This is your opportunity to book your free consult with one of our expert coaches at chronichealthcollective.com for personalized support. You can subscribe to our monthly magazine for expert tips from 11 coaches that elevate your life, your health, your mindset, and on your relationships. So You can check that out, but you can catch us live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on our YouTube channel at youtube.com at Chronic Health Collective, or watched past episodes anytime on E360 TV. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show today, and your transformation, including with your breath, starts now. See you next week.